Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Addicted to Growth podcast. I am your host, Jean Richard. I am extremely excited for today's special guest, Becca Boston. Becca sees her learning difference as her superpower, as it has taught her many important lessons throughout her life. Through having dyslexia and an auditory processing disorder, she knew from a young age that vulnerability and asking for help was a strength of hers. However, advocating for herself outside the classroom got difficult. Becca was involved in a domestic violence relationship that she hid behind her smile for far too long. Eventually, Becca made the decision to walk out of into the war of recovery to overcome her trauma and addiction to self-harm. In 2020, Becca was continuing to rehab her life, and she began telling her story and telling herself, stay strong, stay you, because you got this. It was her personal reminder that her strength was giving pain a voice, as her mental health was taking a toll as an essential healthcare worker. As she began to share her motto and message on social media, people were beginning to resonate and be impacted. Today, Becca is a social media influencer, best-selling author, podcaster, and coach. Becca believes that it is her God-given mission to help encourage and inspire people to recognize that their strength is giving their pain a voice while staying true to themselves. Yet, she hopes that she can help people recognize that being different makes a difference. Becca, welcome to the Addicted to Growth podcast. I am so happy, thrilled, honored, and all the above to have you here with us today.
Well, I am so freaking excited. I absolutely love you as well. And I am just so grateful to be able to, pour into your community and help out anywhere that I can. So thank you for having me as well, my friend.
Oh, of course. You are so very welcome. There are so many different levels that, you just resonate with others. And it is so touching, whether it's autism, dyslexia, learning difficulties, self-harm, domestic abuse, so many different things that one can experience that you truly are inspiring. And because you have been there, it really resonates with others on how much you understand. You're not just out there saying, you've read about these situations because you've lived them. That is the huge difference in having others understand you. I'd like to talk about going through all these different experiences, challenges, struggles that you had faced, and now those struggles are your strength. Can you tell us, was there a certain moment in your life that you would say was a turning point?
I mean, I think we all have a wide variety of turning points throughout our journey. I can think of, many different ones, being young, being diagnosed with a learning difference at a very young age was definitely a turning point. that's when I had the conversation with my parents, letting them letting me know that I, had this diagnosis, but this diagnosis did not define me, right? There's so much more to me. There's so much more to you and to any other individual than a diagnosis. And, I'm not trying to take away that I didn't feel the feels, at times of like it being hard and not wanting to be different, because I think we all in some way, shape or form want to fit in, because we all are looking for that connection and that, being seen. But I think having that conversation and having the support of my parents definitely also, helped me embrace being different and having learning different styles. So that would definitely be a turning point. Another turning point would be choosing my heart of walking out of, domestic violence relationship and stepping into the war of recovery. And then, recovery isn't linear, and sometimes it has, moments, and sometimes it goes on longer than you expected. I think timelines are, something that often get, underportrayed, because I think a lot of people think that healing is an overnight result when it's an overtime process. So the time I stepped out of the domestic violence relationship, it wasn't until years later, until 2020. So we all remember that year where we lived a couple things,
Right.
year that I, woke up way before the pandemic hit, and just decided 2020 is going to be the year for me to create a greater version of myself, no matter what happens. And
That's right.
that was just a turning point, because I had recognized I was living for other people, and I didn't, fully understand who I was or couldn't see my light. And I just wanted to show up for myself. So that would be another huge turning point in my life.
Wow. Wow. So that is amazing how you realized at such a young age that something was wrong, that not wrong, that something was different. Whereas a lot, I feel, of the youth today, they would put a mask on that. They would act like everything's okay and still try to continue as others living that normal journey of life, that normal pace, whether, it's in the classroom learning or outside having friends, while growing up in the neighborhood, activities, things like that. Whereas having a learning difference, or, just not being where everyone else says is your target spot. And the strength that you had as a little youngster, as young Becca, having that confidence and that strength to speak up and tell your parents is so strong, is so awakening. I can just imagine a lot would feel shamed to not speak up. A lot of children, may hide it. Did you, with your parents hearing it, and you mentioned that they were supportive, how much did that mean to you? Does that really confirm, wow, I'm not in this alone?
Well, yeah. And yes, having my parents' support meant everything. I truly will never be able to fully thank them for all that they have done with me, and supported me and loved me with having this diagnosis, with life in general. Like, I'm truly, truly incredibly blessed. And I also just to clarify a little, like I was in second or third grade when I was diagnosed. So I didn't fully understand or like comprehend what this meant. I did know that I learned different.
Mm-hmm.
And that things were challenging. And I was getting bullied at school at times, being told, like, are you really that dumb that you have to go outside of class to go learn somewhere else? Like, there were things that, was challenging, and it was hard. And back in those days, like learning disabilities, dyslexia, it wasn't talked about
Mm-hmm.
as openly as we talk about it today. And it was still considered, and I freaking hate this word, but it was like, you were retarded. Like, and that word was like still being thrown around. And
Wow.
my family actually struggled with like, who do we share this
Mhm.
diagnosis about? Because like, we wanted to continue to get the help that I needed, but at the same time, we wanted to do what we could to kind of like protect myself from any further bullying and all of that. So it was definitely a journey. And it wasn't necessarily me being diagnosed and being able to be like, hey, I learned different, stop bullying me. Like I wasn't there yet. It took me a long time. It took me getting into the right environment and knowing how I learn, to really be able to stand up for myself. But I couldn't have done it without my parents. They continued to just help me always see the strengths that I had, not just within learning, but within life, and help me
Yeah.
bring it out. So, yeah.
Wow. So did your schooling change or classes, or were there additional um learning, classes aside from the others?
Yeah. So I went to my public elementary school from kindergarten to fourth grade. And that's where I think even before I got into elementary school, there were early warning signs that, I may learn differently. Hearing my sister's name, Emily, as Abby, and hearing my uncle Mike's name as Kaka Nick. And it was kind of like hard to know if those were just like cute nicknames. But my mom also recognized when playing a game that I called a giraffe a draft, because that's what I heard, and like I had stumped her in a game. So there were definitely early warning signs, and then when I got into school, things became a little bit more apparent. And I went through testing in my public elementary school, and it came back there might be some auditory processing challenges, and I was kind of like, no duh.
Right. I've been
So
living it.
right. So I'm beyond grateful that my parents were able to take me out of my elementary school to, one, go get the proper testing that I needed. Testing for learning disabilities isn't always accessible to people within their area, and extremely expensive. So I am beyond grateful that my parents were able to do that for me, that I was able to get the support, and just the way God works. My mom was really great friends with this one woman, and you know she had always told my mom about these people who learn differently at the school that she works for. And my mom was like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, but she never fully like understood it
Yeah.
until
She had,
I got diagnosed.
right. Until she had
And
a child that, yeah.
yeah, so that was kind of like a, way God worked for my mom to also get the
Mm,
support that she needed. And make a long story short, yeah, after fourth grade, I transitioned to a private elementary school for kids with learning disabilities.
that's amazing. That's amazing. So there, were you able to find others that you could connect with better than you had previously in your classes in the public school system? Did you find
So
yourself really learning more social, like connecting more socially with others now that you had people that were kind of on the same page, or, you know?
I think for me, I've always been an extrovert. So I think connecting with other kids has always somewhat come easy. I'm not always gonna say it was like perfect, but
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a strength of mine. But I also did go to the school's summer school program prior to going to it full time. So I
Mhm.
also started the school knowing other children, knowing some of the teachers. So it wasn't like I was walking in not knowing anyone.
Right.
So that definitely helped. And I think as far as like the social part, I think the most incredible aspect was that each and every single one of us had some sort of learning disability, whether that was
Yeah.
dysgraphia, which is handwriting, dyscalculia, which is math. Like we all struggled in different areas.
Yeah.
Um, and we never necessarily like had bullying due to our learning disability. We definitely had, more like drama type things. Like I remember girls speaking gibberish and I couldn't speak gibberish, but I could understand certain things and I knew how to understand my name. So I knew that they were talking about me. I just couldn't speak back.
Oh,
Uh, so there were more like things like that. But
yeah.
I think also just having teachers that like knew how to teach us in small groups and give us practical skills, and just help us understand how we learn best.
Yeah. They had more patience with you, probably.
Yeah.
And that brings up something else I just thought of with learning differently. Do you feel that has impacted you of becoming more of someone that's strong within their patience area? Like being that you had to take, a different approach and be patient with yourself, give yourself grace. Do you find you're more patient or impatient?
I mean, I'm human. No, I would definitely say I have an overload of patience for other people.
Mm,
And I would say overall I can be a pretty patient person within myself. And just kind of going with the flow. Not to say that I don't get impatient because there are definitely seasons in which I'm like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired and I just want to like things to
right?
but I mean, yeah, I think it's not just due to having a learning disability. I have two older sisters who are 7 and 9 years older, and I remember going on college tours with them.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and like having to be patient as we wander through universities, sitting through, just certain things. And I would always get creative on how to use my time, you know,
Ah,
while, on a college tour or sitting somewhere. My classic thing with my family was I used to use, instead of carrying around dolls that were like bulky all the time, I'd carry around different sized pencils and I'd play pencil people. So, in case you ever wanted a fun fact about me, I play.
that's cool. That
Yeah.
creative mind was just always turning, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to go back to where you had decided or recognized that something was a little different and you approached your parents and told them, how you felt. There are a lot of children out there that are scared of being different, intimidated, um, ashamed, nervous, and they're continuing to hide their differences because they don't feel that they will get that acceptance. What would you say to those individuals? Because, also I want to say it's not always just children. Those children become teens, become adolescents, become adults, and may still be hiding behind the mask because they're afraid of others' judgment of being different. What would you say to those individuals to help give them that confidence that they need to share their differences or come out and speak about it?
Well, first to the parent who needs to share the news with their child, because that's what happened with me. Is my parents shared with me my diagnosis at a young age. First, have the conversation at a young age because it's important for them to know, but for it to not define who they are, and really help them recognize the incredible things about them outside of the diagnosis. So that's the first thing I would say to like any parent who is going through it, and anybody who's, struggling with, maybe wanting to fit in or not owning their differences. You got to own it. Like, we're all different with or without a learning disability, a diagnosis, or anything. We all have unique fingerprints that are unique to who we are. Like, nobody else has your freaking fingerprint, and it's meant to leave an imprint within this world. And your fingerprint holds your story. It holds your experiences that you have lived through, and your story can be somebody else's survival guide. So what you went through can help somebody else. And the other thing I would say is that, I understand wanting to fit in with the crowd, but when you're at like a concert or a venue, there's often that one person off to the side that like maybe up in the tree, and he's always the one that, people are judging or people are calling out. And yeah, I understand that because he's not fitting in. But what we don't know is while we're stuck in the crowd, he's got the best view. He's got, maybe some able to see things that we're not able to see. He's got a totally different perspective on what's happening. So he's got something special. Yeah. And I personally want to be with people who want to see things in new perspectives, who want to grow, who, want to live life in their own unique way. So don't be afraid to, step out and be different, because your differences are what make you unique and you.
I love that. Now, with technology today, a lot of things online, have you discovered, for those maybe that don't have that self outlet or that close individual or group to connect with, that there are online support groups? How could one find something like that? It's questioning whether or not, there may be dyslexia or learning disability, autism, different support groups. What would you suggest for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any like particular support groups for dyslexia necessarily. I mean, there is the International Dyslexia Association, which is all across the United States. I personally, growing up in Pennsylvania, went to the Pennsylvania branch of International Dyslexia Association. But they have a wide variety of things and ways in which you can get help. My mom actually worked for the PBIDA and led the dyslexia simulations. So there's ways for people to get, the support, whether you're a parent or a child, or anything along those lines. And I also think just getting involved with, like, if you're struggling with mental health and you're looking for support groups, there's NAMI support groups. I mean, I have no shame in saying right now, like, I've been going to NAMI support groups to help me, process things and just have individuals that are able to listen. And I think that's such a powerful thing, because the other important thing to recognize is that, learning differences can also impact our mental health.
And tell others what NAMI means. Tell our listeners.
Oh gosh, that
any initial. It's mental though.
It's mental illness.
Okay. And it's Mental Health Awareness Month, correct?
It is. May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure there's different groups on Facebook where just even to vent and have an outlet, by searching mental health or something like that, that individuals can find a place for them to share, their feelings and experiences. Because we're all here to help. Everybody's got a story, right?
Exactly.
And you mentioned walking out of a domestic abusive situation. How did that change your life once you made that decision to step out, step on with your life?
Yeah. Um, I mean, that was probably one of the scariest times of my life. I had been hiding this domestic violence relationship in which I was, physically, emotionally, sexually abused, and hid it all behind my smile. Outgoing
Mm,
personality. When I had the support to open up,
mm,
but the fear of, speaking up and potentially putting my family in harm, especially after you're told after time, like, if you speak up and say anything, things could get worse.
yeah, yeah,
So choosing that hard, and we all have a hard, right? We're all going through something and we have to make a hard decision, even if that's the decision of, I need to put myself first. Like, that is a hard freaking decision,
mhm,
because we constantly are usually doing things for other people, and it's hard to place ourselves first. And for me, it was recognizing, like, I can continue to, live in this situation and this relationship, um, and play the role that I'm a part playing, because you have to take responsibility for the roles in which you're playing within your life. And I had to accept that, I can continue to play this part, or I can choose my heart and walk out and try to figure out recovery. And I knew either way it wasn't going to be easy. Remaining in the same situation isn't easy. Choosing
yeah.
your heart and walking out isn't easy, but you have to be willing to choose your heart and just go all in and figure it out along the way.
Wow. You're a warrior, my friend. You are a warrior. And I can't imagine the pain that you were feeling living that. So you also mentioned, self-harm. Do you feel, those that aren't familiar with it, you feel that you chose to harm and injure yourself because you were numbing everything else? You were numbing the feelings of what was going on in your day-to-day life, that you chose self-harm? And how did you step away from that?
Yeah, I think the important thing to recognize within self-harm is, a lot of time people are not looking to necessarily end their life. It's a temporary negative coping skill in which it releases the temporary pain.
Mm,
And it's one of those hard situations for me where I wasn't necessarily your stereotypical person who was self-injuring, in ways in which people think about it. For me, I was blaming certain things on, sports injuries, and you wouldn't have been able to tell, especially as going through high school and all of that. And eventually, I recognized that, I was addicted. Like, it was it was a release. It was a negative coping skill for me to turn to. Um, and knowing other addicts, knowing, like, my best friend was a drug addict and an alcoholic at times, and she went to AA, NA at that time. And I had tried to step into that to see if it could work for me, even though my addiction was different.
right.
Unfortunately for me, like, I understood and saw the value of it. There were certain people that were willing to try to help me out within, going through the steps in a different way. Um, but at the same time, I was turned down by a lot of different people, and it just wasn't the right environment for me. So I just didn't give up hope. And I think that's the biggest thing, is I was just like, there has to be somebody out there that, like, truly understands, that will get this. And I just kept that, what we call the mustard seed of faith.
Yeah.
And I ended up walking into a support group in which I found, my two best friends, back in PA now, but Nicole and Amber. Nicole was the leader of the support group and the mother of Amber. And Amber was in a very similar situation to me. Our recovery and our addiction to self-harm looked totally different, but that did not take away that we both were engaging for temporary release. and we both faced the same battles within that. So finding that recovery buddy was huge. And to be able to support each other within that. And even just getting creative with it of, we used to play Connect Four with emojis in times in which, we felt we were unsafe or anything along those lines. Like, we got really creative within ways to help each other to stay just present or make each other laugh or anything along those lines. So I definitely say like having a recovery buddy, but also just having to recognize that, the pain of having to tell somebody you relapsed hurts more than relapsing itself. Really ultimately got me to the point where I was able to put it down, and now I'm able to say it. I want to say I'm close to 9, maybe 10. After 5, you lose track.
That's amazing, Becca.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, just having someone to connect with on that level, I can imagine is just so invigorating. That's awesome. Now, what's a life lesson that you would like to share with us?
Ooh, a life lesson that I'd like to share. You got, we're always talking about perspective, I think, and you always have to be willing to readjust your focus and develop from the negatives. Having a degree in photography, I've always been able to see things in different perspectives. And, I think that comes with seeing different things, different perspectives for yourselves, but also seeing the perspective of others. And knowing that, maybe it's taking yourself out of the equation and just asking yourself, maybe this person isn't getting back to me because they're living life. It's not about me. It's about this person is going through something. And, at the same time, getting creative with ways in which you can readjust your focus and take care of your mental health. I mean, one thing I do, I've never really shared this with anybody. So, you get a secret sauce of my ingredient, but
awesome.
Get an ingredient in my sauce. When I go out in nature, I always try to get, creative with my perspectives of not just looking at the world straight on, but often lying down or sitting, sitting at a different angle, or honestly, like if there's a bench or something nearby, like I'll go upside down,
oh, wow.
Just to see the world in a different way that we wouldn't typically do it. And if you think about it, you go to a place that is a tourist attraction. So I'll just use Multnomah example, as Multnomah Falls is a huge place for people to see it, a beautiful waterfall here in Portland. And if you go, you always just see people taking the dead on shot, right? Like it's same picture after same picture after same picture. And anytime I go to a tourist spot, I'm like, let me go away from the people to get a different shot, because that's going to make, you stand out, or you're going to gain a different, viewpoint.
Yeah.
And I think the same with life. It's like we need to gain different viewpoints within our own life.
Oh, wow. I'm going to do that. I'm just visioning right now to go to a park, lay on the bench, and just take it in. Of course, I will not leave without taking some snapshots to remember that. And just getting in the habit of looking at things differently. If you see a big tree, a rock, leaning up against it and kind of getting that view of it from there, looking at the background and getting in that routine of seeing things differently from other perspectives and incorporating that in my daily life. That is so beautiful, Becca.
I always say going on a hike with me is so much more than you'll ever expect, because I'll be like, hey, you want to sit on this bench upside down?
That is so
Yeah.
cool. I love your vision so much. I definitely would never have thought of that.
Or even taking like even sometimes we're so focused on the big picture, so sometimes we're so focused on seeing the beautiful mountains. I'm talking about Portland because that's where I am, but
Yeah.
focusing on the big beauty that's in front of us, but what about the small details?
Mm.
What about zooming in onto the bark? What about zooming in and focusing on how beautiful this one flower is? Because sometimes we can get so lost in the big picture, and like we need to bring it back into a smaller viewpoint,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure things out. And it doesn't mean you can't pull back, and
Right.
again, bigger picture.
Yeah.
um
Look at the whole picture, the
yeah.
little things that bring the whole thing together.
And there's no such, in my eyes, there's no such thing as a bad picture, because
Mm.
every is going to hit everyone's eye differently. And at the same time, there's always room for improvement. Like you can always take another shot. Um, you just can't lose sight of the viewfinder.
Yeah. I love that. And, we all have two eyes, but we all see a different view.
Yeah. We could be
Yeah.
standing in the same exact spot and take two completely different photos.
I love that life lesson. I'm telling you, I'm probably after this going to go in my backyard and like lay on the ground, like
Mm.
lay on the grass and just look up at the trees. Yeah. That's so beautiful, Becca.
Yeah. Capture,
Um,
upside down on a bench, because I've never taken a picture of myself. Like I'm usually photographing other things or all of that, but I'll do the same. Sometime
yes,
soon I'll capture a picture of myself sitting up upside down on a bench.
please do. That'll be my reminder that I gotta continue that. Keep doing
Yeah.
that. I love that. What okay, I know you have gotten pretty big on social media, and TikTok is an amazing platform for those with differences. There was something a little while back that started, and something about you writing some letters. Can you tell me about that? Tell our listeners what that's about.
Yeah. So, oh man, this is a while ago, but I put out a video about calling parents or individuals with learning disabilities forward, asking them if I could send them a letter of encouragement, or be able to pour into their child's cup so that they know that they're not alone. Because so often, as a child or anything, you can think that you're alone, or you can wonder what your life is going to look like with this challenge. And I knew for me that I grew up knowing that there were people like Will Smith, Orlando Bloom. Like I knew that there were people that were doing incredible things that had learning differences. But I wanted to become that for other children, and other people. So I put out a video a long time ago asking people to come forward, and if I could just write them a letter. And the amount of people that got back to me was astonishing.
Really?
Overnight, there were people reaching out. And I made the decision at that time to only send out a select amount, due to just living life and being able to put that many out.
Right.
So I connected with a bunch of people, but it was an incredible experience. And I now have decided that instead of doing letters, I am going to be setting up a Cameo account, so I can do it video.
Ah,
Because I love writing, but when talking to children, they can't necessarily always and just humans in general. You can't always gauge somebody's excitement or energy or love through letters.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so for me, I'm going to be setting up a Cameo account in which people can request videos from me. So
That's amazing. Yeah, they are going to be able to just comprehend that and how personal, with a video.
and I think, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes because parents would record their kids getting these letters,
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
and the kids telling me, how much it meant to them. And the one girl, it literally almost makes me want to cry again, is she said, for the first time, I believe I'm beautiful.
Oh my gosh, Becca.
And for the
Wow. How
first
did
time, I know that it's okay to be different. Like, just the way these kids were just like having these mini breakthrough moments. And I'm like, that's what it's about,
Yeah,
is kids being able to see that, like, it's hard, and I don't want to take away from the struggle, because we do face those challenges, and
mm,
people often don't see, the hard work that these kids, and, I experience the hard work of putting in to your homework, into, all of this. And you feel like, why am I doing it?
yeah,
But when you know that there's somebody out there that gets it, that could see you, even if they're not physically seeing you, like, I don't have to physically see you doing it. All you have to really just tell me you're doing it.
right, right. And
Yeah.
just them getting that acknowledgement, I can't imagine how much that just lifted their spirits, and then the feeling that you're receiving, is all the confirmation needed of, wow, you know, this is the reason I'm doing this. There's my confirmation on why I was born with this, because I am now using it as such a gift to others,
Mhm.
seeing their reaction or hearing their reaction, where they're just like, wow, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful that you have turned a challenge into, such triumph, turning those children into champions that they are.
Exactly.
That is so awesome. Now, can you share with us what may be a goal that you're working on right now?
A goal that I'm working on.
Doesn't have
Right.
to be too personal, doesn't have to be too just. Is there any goals you're working on right now?
I am continue work in progress in a lot of areas. I am working on trying to put myself in a better position for speaking engagements, improve within my speaking. People have always told me I've had a natural gift at speaking, a way with words, and all of that. But I want to elevate my craft. So I am, starting a course with Marcus Black, who you had here on the podcast before. So doing that, but I have a goal to be getting more speaking engagements, and
Right.
to be able to talk to kids, and to be able to talk to those who are struggling with mental health, or anything that my story can help other people and help other communities.
Yes.
And my ultimate goal longer down the road would be to, be traveling,
Yeah.
doing what I love, being able to pour into people. So that would be a goal that I'm working on. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm working
Yeah.
on, but
Right. Yeah.
if you know me, if you're one of my behind the scene friends, which you are, I say there's never a dull moment of being friends with me,
No,
as you never know what's up next.
that's
But
right. But that's
um,
great, also with speaking, that you can connect not only with adults, but with children too, and that's
yeah,
who really, we kind of overlook that a lot. And you have the ability to definitely connect with the youth, and that's our, tomorrow's future. And that's who really needs it.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. Um, what was it that I wanted to say? Um, oh, with you sharing, goal, and I said it doesn't have to be big or small or whatever. That reminded me about what you began on Wednesdays with the Stay Strong, Stay You community. Can you share that with our listeners, please?
Yes. Stay Strong, Stay You and the Love Project Collective have collaborated together to do Win Wednesday every Wednesday on Instagram at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And for Win Wednesday, we celebrate not only our wins, but everyone's wins, no matter how big or small. We celebrate them all because we never want to lose sight of those small wins as they lead to the greater wins along the journey. So it's me, as well as Monica Maciez and David Sledge. And we usually bring on a guest every once in a while. And we are there to celebrate because so often we lose sight of those small wins. And we want to help each other, celebrate those small wins, even if it's just getting out of bed. That's a win. You woke up for the freaking day, and that is a thing to be grateful for because you have air in your lungs. I get really
That's
excited.
right. Absolutely.
I absolutely love Win Wednesday. And it has been a little over a year now that, we've been doing it.
Great. That's great. Now, I love your motto: stay strong, stay you, because you got this. Tell me how that was born, please. How did you think of that?
It honestly was it was not something that just came overnight. In the midst of the pandemic, I was, doing my own personal development, and, my coach at the time was telling me, you have to change the narrative within certain things. And, changing the narrative is up to you, how you want to deal with it, and like how you can gain peace within inside of it. And one thing I recognized that was triggering within my life in a unique way was my personal trainer always told me, keep being you. And it was one of those things that it just meant so much to me coming from him. As I really respected and valued all of that he was teaching me within my life, that he accepted me for who I was, not trying to fit in with anybody else. And when the pandemic hit, we lost communication. We had to go our separate ways, because life was life. And I really missed hearing him say, keep being you. And every time I heard it in my head, it brought me back to what I lost. It brought me back to, I no longer have my gym community. Like, people aren't here. Like, the people that I valued aren't here. And it was triggering. It brought me down the whirlwind of thoughts. And I recognized in that moment that I had to find a different slogan or a different saying for keep being you. And throughout time, I was getting myself in the routine of doing affirmations every morning. And I would just continue to catch myself, stay strong. And even in the moments in which I had tears running down my face, or I was extremely tired, I would always catch myself saying, stay strong. And at times it was like, stay strong because you are strong right now. And at times it was, stay strong because God's your strength right now. And, I also recognized it was, me giving my pain a voice and telling my parents like what I was going through or how exhausted I was being a healthcare worker in the midst of the pandemic. So throughout time, stay strong, stay you, became my personal reminder that my strength wasn't about how heavy I could lift or how hard I could take a hit or how much I could handle. My strength was giving my pain a voice. My strength was not giving up on myself. My strength was showing up for me each and every single day. And as I began to continue to say, stay strong, stay you. I eventually started saying it on TikTok, and people began to resonate. And here we are today with a logo and all of that. And it has the tagline of "Because you got this."
Mm-hmm.
And that came from all the moments in which people told me I got you. And then their lack of action showed me that they didn't. I had to continue showing up for me. I couldn't put my expectations on them to allow me to stop my journey. So because you got this was my personal reminder that I had this, and God had my back. So
taking that ownership that you can do it. You're the one.
Yep.
I love that. I really, really love that. And it motivates me a lot. I reflect on your motto very often, Becca. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. It means a lot to hear that.
It's true. It's true. Y'all looking for inspiration, y'all got it with Becca Boston. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, how to connect with you. Now, I always like to close with 2 questions. And just to help our listeners connect a little bit more with you personally, what's going on, what your thoughts are on this. First question: if you could ask one question to anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a good one. If I could ask them one question, what would I ask them? Because I know who, I'm just trying to think of what question.
Okay.
So
think about it for a minute.
all right. I think I have my answer.
All right, I'm ready.
This might be weird, but honestly, this
Bring
is
it.
what's coming to me, and this is just how
you thinking?
How I'm thinking. I would ask my future self that is about to take her final breath. Did you have a good run?
Did you say it again? I'm sorry.
Did you have a good run? Like, did you have a good run in life? Like, are you happy with who you were?
Oh my God. Oh, Becca. Wow. That is so good, because that is something that's going to stay with you. Having that mentality and thinking about that, that's going to stay with you on what you do daily and with this journey set in front of you. I had never had anybody answer like that. But that's what you get with Becca Boston.
I think usually with questions along those lines, so many people say other people. I get that. Obviously, there's probably people I could think of that I would want to ask questions to, but I truly get so much wisdom with having conversations with my future self in some of those ways, and just being able to be like, if I could receive those words, that would be right now. And I have the ability to kind of, not that I'm there yet, but like I can have kind of that future conversation with myself, if that makes sense. So
yeah, it's within your control, most of it, the decisions that you make, the habits you have, the habits you don't have.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. More things you're going to have me thinking about long after this. Okay, last question. What is something on your bucket list and why?
Oh, what is something on my bucket list and why? I actually just put together like a newer bucket list. One of the things on my bucket list is to travel to Bali. Why? I don't really know.
It's gorgeous.
Other than it looks beautiful, I really want to go. And just to travel more in general. Like I want to go to Bali. I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to, a lot of different places that I haven't been. Also, I'm like acknowledging that I'm also coming out of like 6 months of rain here in Portland. So I think I'm like thinking of like all the tropical places that I really want to go to.
Right.
Right now. But I also just want to travel and experience culture. I was grateful growing up that I was able to travel a lot, going to Russia, Germany, Finland, Sweden, a lot of different places. But I was traveling young, so I didn't really understand the importance of understanding, other cultures. And now being an adult, I'm like, holy macaroni. Like, I want to go, spend time in different cultures and explore the world and, get, an understanding of what other people living in the world. So the travel. And if I'm able to travel and also continue to speak and share, all that I'm doing, like,
Wow.
bucket
Yeah.
list.
Yeah. And I can see you in Hawaii getting up at the luau, not just sitting down eating dinner, but up there doing their dances right up front and center, dancing Hawaiian dance, and maybe even singing, just learning all about everybody's culture. That's what
There'll
I
be a moment in which anytime I go to new cultures and if I learn new dances and it's caught on camera, I will post it on social. I usually don't do dancing videos, but when I'm traveling learning, as long as yeah, within reason, I'll post it.
Right. I love your outlook. I love you, your inspiration, your understanding for others is just priceless. It's priceless. And now I want to give you a minute to share with others where they can connect with you, follow you, stay in touch. How can our listeners find Becca Boston?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Becca Boston 26. My DMs are always open. I love connecting with new people and just being able to support each other within this game of life. And that is also where When Wednesday happens. So Becca Boston 26 on IG. On TikTok, that is where my main following is. That is at Becca Boston 6. So again, hop on over there. The messaging on TikTok isn't always the greatest, but I am definitely one to respond to comments. Ask me any question on any video, and if I see it, I love answering random questions. So if you're just one of those people that loves to randomly ask questions, I am an open book and will answer them. So Becca Boston 6 on TikTok, and then BeccaBoston.net. So www.BeccaBoston.net is my website where you can reach out in a wide variety of ways, get involved with the Stay Strong, Stay You community. We do have a Facebook group, which we're getting back up and running after having to shut some other things down, but we're getting the community back up and running and going to be figuring all that out. So if you'd like to join the Stay Strong, Stay You community, just reach out to me in any way. You are welcome, and we are ready to help you create a greater version of yourself and here to support you in any way.
Very cool. Very cool. And I will put all that information for our listeners down in the show notes as well. So Becca, I want to thank you again for taking time out to be here with our Addicted to Growth podcast community. You have definitely given me so many things to think about, different insight, and that is definitely going to continue on my journey, as well as I know you've inspired our listeners as well to kind of look at things from a different perspective and always develop from those negatives. So
Yes. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate being here, and I absolutely love all that you.
thank you so much. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And you are so welcome for being here. So stay strong, stay you podcast community. Until next time, keep growing.